Well, here I am. I've arrived in Warsaw and I am wowed by the reality of being back in this city that was once a thriving, bustling world of Jewish pride. In this town, Jews had come and they were not allowed to live within the city limits. They were only granted the rights actually in the 1700s, and interestingly enough, right away assimilation started. But Warsaw ended up becoming one of the cities where you had religious, non-religious, Zionist, anti-Zionist, and every single thing in between in this major center of Jewish life. The publications that came from the city, they were read widely around the world. And the first newspapers that came out of Warsaw were brought to every Jewish community because it was a way of feeling pride in this major civilization accomplishment where Warsaw Jews were a dominant and prominent feature. Jewish life made up a third of Warsaw. And this life was just wiped out. And people don't even think about it. And they don't realize it because it's old news. And when we learn about the Holocaust, we focus so much on the gas chambers, on Auschwitz. And we don't think sometimes about the life that was led and cut so short. That's what I want to encourage people to think about as we maybe take this online journey. I've never done it this way, but I think that it'll be very interesting that while I'm guiding this wonderful group of diplomats, I am able to connect with you out there in the world and share with you. So this is Warsaw. Let's see if you can see the whole city here. And out there, all these tall buildings that didn't exist. Warsaw was flattened during the war and it had to be rebuilt. It was completely bombed out, and most of what we see today is a recreation. Some of the remnants of the ghetto remain underneath the ground. So we walk on a city built over what was once a Jewish world, and then a Jewish world condensed into a 3.5-kilometer radius of a ghetto, where they were cut off, and they were told, no longer can you live amongst us. And eventually it became, no longer can you live. What does it mean when we study the Holocaust if we don't translate never forget into remembering the life that was lived under the shadow of death? So much of my approach to understanding human behavior during the Holocaust comes from that position, comes from that perspective. And we actually have to also sometimes think about the mentality of the perpetrator. It's very hard to just assume that this was an extremism, because it wasn't. Many of these people who were involved in the creation of the ghetto, they were just common civilians, just like the Jews, just like their neighbors, their friends, who suddenly were ostracized legally by this government that came in and infiltrated. But of course, when Poland was taken over, and Warsaw in particular on September 30th, 1939, when Warsaw was captured by the Nazis, the first thing they did was take out the leadership and create division between the Jews. And then they issued the announcement that they would have to put on a white armband with a blue star. When we remember the Holocaust, we so often know about the yellow star. And yes, that is true that in many of the ghettos and cities around the world, even before they were ghettos in Europe, some cities that had implemented a yellow star, it was not the only form of branding the Jews. So in Warsaw, it was a white band with a blue star. And what does that teach us today? That our flag of Israel is a continuation of a many years legacy, and that people continue to try and use that as a way of branding and shaming Jews. But as Sonia writes, when she was in the Warsaw Ghetto, she writes in her diary about how she sewed for 2 hours her stars and onto her clothing. And she did it as a source of pride, that nobody was going to shame her. And that Star of David was for her a badge of honor. The Jewish life of Warsaw is rich, and I'm so overwhelmed to be back here. If you've never come to Poland, I do hope that you'll consider the March of the Living or any other opportunity. And even if you can't, maybe just pick a city, learn about your family history. Know that out there in the landscape, there were people who were living a Jewish life, just like you and me. They didn't have a place that they could run, and they didn't really have a reason. They loved their life here in Warsaw. There was a major Zionist movement, and some of the heads of the general Zionist movements were active here, and that's why I'm so proud to be the sponsor of Americans for Israel. Please know that all of our activism, that's born from the Jewish life that thrived here in this land for over 900 years. If you want to take part in the Jewish life of today, there are so many ways to do it. And one of them is to vote for Americans for Israel, Slate 19 at ZionistElections.com. Help us get the votes we need to continue to be a part of an important conversation of the future of Jewish nationalism. And Declaration Day, you know what was declared from Warsaw again and again? Jewish pride. Assimilated, religious, it didn't matter. Because at the end of the day, they lump us together as one. We are one. We are one nation with different styles of identity. Warsaw, the cosmopolitan center, is a great example of how it once thrived and was quickly destroyed. Quickly. People were shocked. Few movies I would recommend if you haven't seen is The Pianist, because it gives you this idea of an individual's life. But when it comes to finding the right movie, it's never possible, because you can never really recreate the history and the reality of the experience as it was lived. The best we can do is say, we will not be the one to sever the tail. We will hear the stories, inherit them, and carry them onward. As we come upon Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, I hope that you are finding resources for yourself and your family. IsraelForever.org is there for you to be able to do something creative and take memory and create meaning out of it. So I'll be back with more information and more experiences here on the ground in Poland.